My name's Dan. I'm a visual artist that uses cameras as my chosen art tool. So whether it be photography, videography, any sort of darkroom techniques, and just trying to use light to make art. I started, I think, pretty late in the game. So I didn't start using cameras and whatnot until I was 18 or 19. I enjoyed walking around taking photos and video on my phone while at uni, and then decided to go out and buy a camera. But I didn't have the money for a digital camera, so I bought a film camera. Yeah, just kind of never looked back once I started using that. A big part of art for me is what I call the three pillars. And if I went back and did my master's, I'd probably do it on this whole idea of there being three pillars of art that separate it from design, for instance. So a lot of the work I make is design based, and it's made to look nice and go on people's walls, and people are supposed to, the layman's supposed to see it and be like, oh, this is nice. But ideally, I'd want to just make work that satisfies the three pillars, which is context, deliverance, and concept. So you always have to start off with, what is the context of your work? Are you making it to say something to someone? Are you making it to sell a message? Or are you making it to make money or for it to look nice on someone's wall? And whether you are making art or making design with your intention is the first pillar. The second pillar is your deliverance, because you can go out and take thousands of photos and come back with one good one and be like, yeah, I did it, but you didn't really do it. Or you could go out with a clear idea of exactly what you want to capture and fail, and once again, you haven't accomplished true art. It's only once you go out with a clear idea and capture that, that's when the deliverance of your work comes into play. And then the last one is the concept. So what is it that you're trying to say, and what message are you trying to get across? What deeper meaning does your work have? And once you put all these three together, that's when your art separates itself from design or non-high art and elevates itself to a high art position, which is where I'd like to be eventually. Photography and filmmaking have always been separate in my artistic career. Photography for me was always just it's just a stills version of filmmaking. And it wasn't until I got my first SLR and was like, okay, I can actually make some really nice photos with this, and then started taking it seriously from there. This is my first semester out of uni, so pretty much all my art stuff from then on in was very university based. So I've made works where I've traveled all across the state, making pieces about all the old grain silos across the grain belt, so that was pretty cool. And my latest work for uni, which was my major final piece of university, was a short film that I filmed on Super 8 about mental illness and how it separates you from the people that care about you, and how you start to drive people away in search for an end to whatever it is that you're thinking. So the piece that I've made that probably has the biggest impact on my artistic journey, as well as just me as a person, would have to be the work that I did about my friend Zach. It was these two huge 30 by 40 inch hand-printed darkroom prints that were accompanied by a central video, and they told the mental journey of my friend Zach, who believes that he is a renowned street rapper, and he goes out and he does rap battles in the streets. But in our reality, he's just a small kid that has strokes all the time, and he's got really bad cerebral palsy, and he can hardly talk. And it starts off with him kind of talking about who he is, and then he clicks into rapping and he starts freestyling, and he can talk clear as day. And it's ridiculous to see him just snap from mumbling to spitting bars.
And there's no way you can see or stop my flow. I'm going to kick you in the ass and leave you to go.
And then each photo on the side is one of him with his glasses on, with normal clothes, just kind of looking a little bit upset, and then him with his sunglasses on, he snapped back and looking like an absolute G. But I think that telling someone's story, especially one that's as personal as Zach's, I think was really powerful, and everyone that saw it was awed either by the scale of it, because it was the biggest darkroom print we've done at uni, or just the message that it was trying to get across. Out of uni, my last piece was called 2228M, and it was all about the snowy mountain area and how the environment seems so alien to Australians, because we're used to these, like, whether it be rainforest or desert, the alpine region is very concentrated in the Australian landscape. So it's something that a lot of Australians don't experience, especially over the summer. So I went over there when there was no snow, just trying to show a different side to the Australian landscape. Probably one of the biggest personal experience I had when starting to get into film photography was I was on the train from Wollongong up to Sydney, and there was this homeless dude just like curled up in the corner of one of the carriages, had literally his entire life in his backpack, and had a Leica with him. And the Leica's, like, his camera would have been like a $5,000 or $6,000 film camera. So I went up to him and I was like, "Hey dude, what's your story?" And he said he sold everything, bought this Leica, and he just hitchhikes around Australia. And this dude was like old. He was not a young dude. And he just says he travels around, lives on the street, takes photos, and then sells them for like the money for him to like survive. And I was like, dude, that's the coolest thing I think I've ever heard. Like, you don't see people running around with, like, you don't see homeless dudes running around with a 1DX Mark II or like any sort of digital camera really. Like, it's specifically like an organic Leica film experience. So I've always wanted to emulate that, I guess. So at the moment, my main accommodation is my van. Her name's Diane, and I've had her for about 1.5 years. I kind of switch between living in the van and living here with my parents, depending on how I'm feeling financially and whether or not I need easy hot food and hot showers and whatnot, or if I'm willing to rough it for a little bit. There's a lot of opportunity for like free camping up and down the coast, so it makes it pretty easy to live out of your van, and I love just being able to go. You know, like, I don't have to worry about accommodation wherever I am because I've always got Diane with me, which is great. One of my friends that recently finished uni, he was a photographer and he sold his gear and he goes out and he makes installation works now. And his dad works on a farm that has a function center that he's built with his bare hands. It's all made out of secondhand material. And Hayden had the great idea, like, I've got the space, I know the people, why don't I just make an art exhibition? And he wanted to make an art exhibition about our involvement with the land, especially in Australia. So we called it the Bark Exhibition. And apparently he'd been like messaging all these other people and putting out this whole marketing thing, and I had no idea what to expect. So a couple of days before I went and got the work that I wanted to display printed, chucked in some Kmart frames, and then took 2 days off work, drove down the day before, helped him set it up, and I'm like, this is actually really serious. And the next day we opened the doors and we had, I think he said he had like over 120 people rock up, and then on the Sunday there was actually a wedding on at the function, so we had the wedding happening and all these people coming in and looking at it, as well as the general public coming in as well, which was really cool. It was exciting, and I've been in a couple of art auctions and exhibitions through the uni as well, but this was my first step into an exhibition that had nothing to do with the uni, and I'm happy to go forward and hopefully get into more spaces. I got to see a lot of other people's reaction to my work as well, because I never told anyone that it was my artwork. So I could literally be sitting there looking at the work next to my work and see people come in and go, "Oh, this is really cool." My goal with my photos is to take photos that look like paintings. I think my favorite comment as far as the look of my photos, someone got really close and went, is that a photo or is it a painting? I can't tell. And I was like, oh, be still my beating heart. Because it was taken on my 35mm camera, the detail was shocking. But as a result, because of the way the film looked, it kind of looked very much like a painting. And people thought it was a painting, and I was blessed. I was going, oh my God, this is great. I love seeing other people like, oh, this is great stuff. I love this Australiana, you know. Oh, I've been up there when I was a kid. So it was great. It was cool to get reactions out of people. So this whole idea of social media and the modern landscape of artists and designers in the present day has been it's been on my mind with everything I do at the moment, just because you can't escape it. It's not even just having this in my hand, it's people that I'm talking about other artists that they see on the internet, and it's a great thing. I'm a big futurist, I believe that we should all embrace modern technologies, but I'm just worried about this whole imposter syndrome, for instance. I find that my style moves around a little bit, so it's very easy to latch on to someone else's and take that train and then be unhappy when my work doesn't look like theirs in the end. I found myself just not liking anything that I made because it wasn't sitting with like current trends. I knew that what I was making was making me happy before it was going onto social media, but then making me upset when I saw it and then saw other people's work on top of it, sort of thing. The constant comparing yourself to everyone else's work was starting to bug me, and comparing numbers, like likes and whatnot, was a big thing. So I decided that I was just going to really start reducing how much interaction I have with social media and go out and make stuff that I want to make, not stuff that I think everyone else wants to see. So now I pretty much limit myself to a certain amount of time on, for instance, Instagram or Facebook. I'll sit there for a little bit every day, just kind of catching up on what everyone else is doing, but I won't sit there scrolling through my feed aimlessly anymore. I found that when I started to reduce it, I stopped going out on shoots and being like, oh, this looks just like this person's photo should look. I wasn't taking a photo and going, this is how it's supposed to look because it's supposed to look like this person's work. I'll just think about how my work looks because it's all I'm really seeing at the moment. But it definitely doesn't mean that I'm not going to look at their work and want to like take inspiration from it. Like I still have that time on here. I'm not living there anymore. I'm just visiting it. I think there's two ways of approaching comparing other people's work to your work. You can look at someone's work, be like, I really love how they've done this, this, and this. I'm going to see if I can try and take those features over to what I do. And then there's having your photo and having their photo and just sitting there going, why doesn't mine look like that, sort of thing? Like there's learning and then there's putting yourself down. And I found that I was getting into the habit of putting myself down when I was living on social media. But now there's no point where I'm sitting there with my photo and another artist's photo anymore next to each other being like, why doesn't mine look like that? Instead, I'm looking at someone's work and being like, yeah, I'd like to incorporate that in my next shoot. And if it doesn't work out, I'm not sitting there with that work from there. It's like, oh no, mine was horrible. Instead, I'm sitting there with my work being like, it didn't work out. This might be what I have to change. My whole photographic process is supposed to be offline. So why do I strive to have it on these social medias? So my silo work, I've never scanned those photos. There's no digital copy of those. They went from light coming into my camera all the way to print, totally analog. And the same with my Kingpin work. And those are the ones that really affect me the most because the only people that have seen those are the people that went and saw them. And once again, it doesn't bring in the big bucks, but I'm really making work that talks to people personally and not just yells out into the void. I want people to see my work that want to see my work. I don't want to be showing my work to people that aren't really interested, and Instagram's a really good platform to get your work out so everyone sees it. And I know it's a good way to try and get more audience members in, but I'm at a stage now where I can probably afford to only be showing my proper work, which is different to my like design work, which is just the standard, like, oh, it looks nice on the wall, like my proper art. I don't want it to touch social media at all. I want it to be something that I can sit down with someone and physically show them what I've got. Mum's pretty on board. Mum's always been like that more arty person in the family. But my dad is obsessed with me buying my first property and moving into a house. And after months and months of long talks about it, he's starting to understand that, like, I don't really want to live in a house, He still wants me to buy a property. He just doesn't want me to live in it anymore. He just wants to, he's like, you need to own a house. And I'm like, no, I'm good, fam. I'm good. But yeah, that's the only real resistance I've had. And just the fact that this doesn't seem as lucrative as I guess my parents would like, this whole art thing. It'd be nice if I had a way to be pulling in the big bucks at this age, but I'm doing what I love, Like if I don't ever make over 60k a year and I keep doing this, I guess I'd still be fine, be able to make a living still. And that's all I really need. I'm not in it for the money, I'm not in it to get rich. I'm in it to make something that says something. Yeah.